Welcome back to another episode of Unlocking Venture Capital. We are here with the lovely Dimple. Hi, Dimple.
Hi.
How are you doing?
Hi, everyone.
Yeah, so
Absolutely lovely.
great. Tell us a little bit about what you do as a venture capitalist and what you are looking for, and would love to dive in. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me. All right, so a little bit about me. I am a deep tech investor currently at an emerging fund here in New York City, but most of my time actually doesn't go towards that. It goes towards my MBA and Master's in Engineering program that I'm doing here at Columbia.
Yeah, absolutely. So the first time when I met Dimple, I saw all these different things that she was doing, and my head was like spinning. So you are in school at one of the top schools in the country. You are working at a venture capital fund, one of the most demanding jobs there is. And you also help out your friends who are at a venture studio, and you also mentor founders. Why do you work so hard, and why are you making us all look bad?
No, not at all. If anything, I feel like I feel unproductive sometimes. But I'll tell you what, I love keeping myself busy. I think that's kind of the number one thing that I've realized over the last couple of years. I love meeting ambitious people, working with them. And some aspects of it do lead to me not being able to say no. But most of the time, I don't regret it because it always leads to better opportunities, better people around me. No regrets, no complaints. I love it.
One of the things that we talked about before was how, like, in your first years in venture capital or in investment in general, it's so easy to fall in love with other people who are so passionate about what they do.
Mhm.
And you kind of have to find that balance in for yourself. I remember, falling in love with every business idea that, like, now having been in it for a few years, I was like, what was I? Why do I react like this? And you completely
Right.
do.
What was I thinking?
Yeah. So how do you kind of maintain that composure of, like, this is me and this is my job and this is, what our fund is really thinking and this is what deep tech actually is versus what you tell me it is, which is also a fun topic.
Yeah, I mean, the aspect of getting excited about something versus not seeing a future for it. I think that is something that you develop over the years. What I try to do is I try to keep it authentic. And although I'm still learning myself, if something does excite me, I do take that forward. I do try to learn more about it. Now, I also keep in mind, I have this kind of skeptical part of my brain that is always on. So a lot of the times I think I love this, but what could go wrong, right? How could what's that one thing that they need that could absolutely just destroy everything?
Hmm.
So that's always in the back of my mind. And that's not to say that if they have something like that, like the founders do, it's not to say that we won't invest in them or I won't look or proceed further with them. It's more so just keeping that in mind, being cognizant of it, and making sure that the founders are cognizant of it, right? I think that's an important aspect. But if something excites me, it does. It's okay. I think that's good, right? I think that helps take it forward.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And yeah, so just diving deeper, I love to actually talk. This is one of my favorite things to talk to any investor about is how you do your pre-due diligence. So what do you look for in the terms of your first 10 hours of your time that's going to save you 200 hours? So I do a part of the segment on this show where I run through a pre-due diligence with the founders. They kind
Okay.
of provide their answers at the end. And then because they do tend to send you pitch decks, they do tend to send you lots of things you have very little context about, right? So as a deep tech investor, that's very, very broad in terms of actual industries and industry mapping. So are there a few key things that are like, these are things that I normally have seen that I would normally flag in the deep tech space that are part of my pre-due diligence all of the time?
Yeah, that's a great question. And this is something I'm still building out. I'd say as I speak to more startups and see more successes and failures, it'll grow. But right now, I think there's a couple different aspects. So one is the core technology. I think everything comes down to a good quality product. And so a lot of my work, especially because I am a technologist by trade and by degree, that's something I really do appreciate and, focus on. And so I focus on what does their tech stack look like? What does their architecture look like? Is it built to be scalable and feasible in the long term? And then what does their IP structure look like, right? Are they, willing to, or have they looked into just like the future of this technology and the quality of it? The other aspect is definitely the team. I think this is true for, deep tech and non-deep tech startups. We love founders who are risk takers and are go-getters, but we also want to make sure that they are cognizant of the risks and the failures that they could see with deep tech.
Mm-hmm.
Within the team, we also want to see perseverance, and I think it's more so important in deep tech than any other industry because this is a very long time horizon industry, right? It takes a very long time for you to see results, to see ROI, the feedback cycles are longer. And so having a founder that more than anything is just passionate about what they're doing, even if they pivot, right? As long as they're really passionate about the problem they're solving, I think that that trumps quite a few aspects of the diligence process. Let me think. Oh, and then I think lastly would be just the market. So whether it's competitors or trends, often in deep tech, you won't see startups going after the latest trends because that's just not sustainable in the long run,
Mm-hmm.
especially because of that longer time horizon I talked about. But it is important to know which companies, could end up being competitors. What are the barriers to entry? Although they're higher often, you have to make sure that they're still cognizant of it. And again, we're keeping that in mind. So I'd say product, team, and market.
That's great. And, coming from someone who has an engineering background like yourself, how are you testing for
Mhm.
those barriers to entry that would be different than how, let's say, VCs of business backgrounds might be testing those barriers of entry? Do you see yourself asking different questions in that sense?
Oh, 100%. And I just went through this through our last diligence process. I was sitting there talking about what does their tech stack look like and are they on the cloud or are they on the premise? How are they storing their data? Is it secure enough? If it is secure, have they thought about DR strategies? All of that does run through my brain, and not all of them need to be asked. Not all questions need to be asked, but I do think it's helpful just because I have built these products from scratch and I, at least from the back end process, know what could go wrong. It's often something I keep in mind. A lot of my questions then cater to who is a product person, what is their background and what was their thinking process when coming up with the design or the architecture of the program or the platform. I think that speaks to a lot to, what the foundation is, where they want it to go, what their vision was, and that's really helpful. But then once they do give those answers, looking into those documents and being able to talk through it, I think even just them knowing that you know what they're talking about and they don't have to run around circles just, explaining something to you is important and in building that rapport with the founder too. So anyways, those are some of the things that I keep in mind and try to bring up, but also try to pull out of them in order to keep that conversation going.
I think that's really good. And it, brings me kind of to my next question. So some funds are very product focused, and that makes sense. So funds like yours, because you have such a strong engineering team and being in the deep tech space, very product focused makes a lot of sense. And so what kind of feedback do you provide founders if they give you a product that could be stronger because it's not strong enough at this stage right now? And I'm sure that happens every day just because there are so many deals that early stage investors always go through. But
Mhm.
so in terms of providing, ideas, resources, or just general feedback to be like, you got to make your tech stronger in order for it to be defensible or for it to be scalable in the long run. So what
Yeah.
is your approach to that at the early stage?
Yeah. So, what I'd say is when I've noticed the more successful deep tech founders, they often know that already.
Oh,
So ideally, this is a conversation that's more, we noticed this. What do you think? And they often come back to us and say, it's absolutely on my mind. This is my plan to approach it. I'll need your help in XYZ. And typically that is the best conversation or the best outcome that you could have from that conversation.
absolutely.
Obviously, there are times when they're a little surprised or they may be a little defensive, but more often than not, a lot of founders are very coachable and they're very open to receiving this feedback. And that's what I personally have appreciated so much about our portfolio companies. Everyone is so, open to this conversation and they want feedback, right? Because oftentimes you're tunnel vision on this product and solution, which is incredible, right? You're a master in this industry. But oftentimes, people who may have seen other startups, similar startups, or even other startups in other industries approach things similarly, they have some insights that may help you. Now, I will say we love when founders are subject matter experts in their industry. And so even us coming to them and giving any feedback that we can for them to come back to us and either say they agree with us or disagree with us, as long as it's well reasoned and logical, it's an open conversation, it's an open dialogue. And that's something that we appreciate. So it could go either way, but it is oftentimes a conversation that we've had to have.
That's so interesting. And, this is something that because, I come from industry agnostic. So when we look at early stage investments that have a lot of advisors in the scientific realm, or, there are a lot of advisors from engineering or science or something like that, it kind of
Mhm.
gives me a flag of being like, either you needed that or there's something else that's missing, or how come X percentage already went to advisors and before, because it's a
Mhm.
pre-seed, right? So before this kind of
Yeah.
stage. And I don't know if that's something that has come across in scenarios that you've dealt with, and do you question the same kinds of things?
Yeah, I mean, we've had to deal with this in a recent diligence process. We were looking at a company that had these incredible experts in the industry who had, they were previously exited founders. And so you could tell that they were a strong executive team.
Okay.
What we did realize was they didn't have so much of a marketing expert within that team.
Okay.
And so, that's something that we ended up bringing up to them. And like I said previously, this is one of the great founders who said, yeah, that's a bit on my mind. Once we close this round, that's something we plan to do. We plan to hire XYZ. And it was a great conversation, but it absolutely is in our mind, and not just from a industry expert perspective, but also from you may be just product experts and industry experts. What else do you need, right? Sales, marketing, finance, HR, operations. Because we deal with a breadth of companies ranging from pre-seed to C to Series A, B, they're in different stages. And so oftentimes they need to kind of get to that next level and they need to hire more folks. So that's kind of our approach, is just we try to give this holistic feedback on what we think needs to be added to the team to get to that next level, because we have seen it from our portfolio companies. But it is a lot of back and forth. The other thing I'd say is, a lot of venture capital firms, they bring this to the table. They bring a network of advisors and operators to the table. And we do too. We have these operators who have exited companies before, they're still building, or they're at, larger firms mentoring other startups. And so a lot of this is really helpful too in bridging that gap if they're not able to themselves.
Okay, great. And so, that is really interesting in terms of how founders are then choosing, because I mean, you always hear only from one side, because I was a founder and, an investor. So he's seeing it from only one side, which is like founders are applying for XYZ, like different funds, right? But the founders at the same time can and should be able to differentiate, why are these funds the best for me? What are they bringing to the table? Like the thing
Right.
you just mentioned, right? And that makes a lot of sense in that way too, because you are essentially interviewing each other, not just one way.
Exactly. And I could not agree more. I was listening to a podcast the other day and they were emphasizing the fact that quality over quantity. I mean, this is said and it's easier said than done because it can get frustrating if, you're not getting the results that you want, but
Yeah.
it is so important to filter out your cap table, your advisors, your team, everything for that matter. But it really is a long-term relationship with these investors. And so you really need to be cognizant of the value they are adding for you and vice versa, the value you are adding for them. Definitely a two-way street.
Yeah, absolutely. So, one of the things that I advise founders to do is that when your early stage investors will be on your cap table forever. So they will
Right.
be there forever and ever and ever and ever. And it's going to be longer than you think it's going to be always. And so, to do your due diligence on them is kind of like asking, okay, well, who are the founders that they've worked with? How have they worked with them? What kind of expertise do they bring? How did they fill in the gaps that I needed? And did they identify
Yep.
any blind spots, right? And so, how you guys stand out as a deep tech fund versus other funds that say we are very pro innovation and very pro all of these kinds of buzzwords and everything. How do you kind of cut through that noise in the venture space?
Mm,
And do you find that founders are asking these questions as they're getting more educated, more sophisticated over the years? Because it was a new
mhm.
industry, but it's not always going to be a new industry.
Right, right. That's incredible. And this is something I thought about when I was joining the fund too. I think
Yeah.
what I love about our fund, and to give you a little context, so we are an early stage investor in pre-seed and seed companies. We do early stage, so we do a bit of Series A, B as well. We focus on enterprise technology, and we absolutely love underrepresented founders. We want to back them. We want them to come to us. Having said that, because we are a tech-focused company, we are very diligent about the operators and the advisors that we have in our network. And that is our strongest, that's our strength, in my opinion, biggest strength, because deep tech, I mean, you can get all the capital in the world, you can get all the time in the world to do what you want to do. But if you don't have good folks helping you get the clients, building a good product, taking it to market, I don't know how helpful that's going to be, right? And especially in deep tech, you can't just go back and, recreate an autonomous jet. You know what I mean? That was way out of the very random, but that's the reality. You have these longer cycles that you need to get through. So bottom line, I think that's an incredible strength that we have. And then second, I'd say is the fact that we love underrepresented founders. So we are an all-female team. We love investing in other females, any other minority groups, and that is because we want to see more growth in that area. And, we've all of our portfolio companies come from those groups, and we are so proud to see them grow. And at the same time, if there's a founder that, not only needs that tech expertise, but also just a shoulder to rely on, that's really what we bring to the table. And that's what I love about my team too.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that that only shows towards more strengths as you, again, are cutting through the noise in this really kind of busy ecosystem that is full of different
Mhm.
kinds of players. And so, yeah, I can completely see your passion in this sense. And for, other players that are, well, other founders that may not be getting the spotlight and actually not getting to pitch or feeling that there is a safe space for them, it's miles
Right.
and beyond because that I was one of them. And so seeing new opportunities out there for other people is something that I find to be really, really touching. So I commend the work that you do for sure. I know that
That's good to hear.
I know that as, someone in this space, you are pulled in so many different directions. People are asking you to volunteer for this, help out at this studio, do these things, look at this and give me feedback, even though you're not at all in this vertical in whatsoever. So how do you decipher what to spend your time on? And how do you politely say no or no, but?
Yeah, that's such a good question. And getting your MBA, I mean, everything aside, if you are getting your MBA, I salute you because if anything, you learn about time management. I think that's the number one thing I'm learning about myself. I'd say what I've learned so far in the few months that I have been here is that I love helping people, whether that's directly or indirectly. So I do have instances where I say no, but I absolutely put a but after and try to connect them with someone else if I can. And I think that's been one of my personal goals is just have a big enough network that I can help anyone and everyone with something. So whether that's someone
Amazing.
needing a plumber, someone needing an investor, someone needing an LP, at least have someone or somewhere that they could start is, that's my personal goal. What I'd say, when it comes to actually saying yes versus no, it's been really hard because I love being around innovation and starting new things. And so that's often what I end up saying yes to. And then once it's at a stage where I think it's, transferable, or it's okay for someone else to take over, that's kind of when I pass on and then move on to the next opportunity. But that's been my opportunity model for the last couple of years, and I think it's going well.
Opportunity model. Work on this.
Yeah. Yeah,
Fantastic.
I'm learning about just that's the VC in me that just came out, opportunity model.
Opportunity. Exactly. You're like, how can I structure my whole life as one opportunity model?
But that's so important because if you're doing so many different things, you need to be able to context switch, you need to be able to be organized. And if that structures your entire life, then so be it. I actually don't mind it.
Well, I mean, maybe this is one of the things that take things off your plate a little bit as a no but. So remember, the women in venture capital channels that we met through and
Mhm.
are part of and are part of a few different ones as well, being able to, even if they're not in our verticals, we can still promote female-led ventures that have commits, hard or soft commits, as well as minority deals that have some commits and are about to close the round, can definitely promote them through the channels that we have access to. So these are also a good way to say no, but in a really positive way,
Mhm.
because then you're providing that kind of exposure to other people who you may have already met at events, or you may have already met on a panel somewhere, and provide them the opportunity that they may have not seen yet. And I've had a
Mhm.
lot of success with posting and opportunities that were not a great fit for, the family office fund, but were really good fits for other people.
That's such a good reminder because it's often you'd be surprised how willing people are to help you, even if they don't know you. So that's a good reminder.
I think that it's something that took me also personally a long time to learn that, and to not fall in love with every single business model, every
Eddie.
two hard lessons, because venture is such an opaque space, and so kind of peeling back the onion, I've always felt that this was a challenge in a variety of different ways. And the more and more that, I feel more connected to the ecosystem and get to make great people like you, Dimple, makes it all better, and it makes it a little less opaque, and it makes it more open. So I'm really glad that you have this kind of sentiment.
Oh, no, 100%. And I have a lot of folks who want to break into VC, and I hear this all the time. Things that you said, it's so opaque, it's a black box, and not so much the inner workings of it, but the network itself and the community.
Yeah.
And I mean, that surprises me. It's counterintuitive because so many venture capitalists they love helping. Obviously, their entire life is just helping founders. And so it's counterintuitive, but I get it because it is a smaller community, especially in a lot of cities. But that's what I keep saying to them is just talk to someone, anyone, even if it's, a junior person at a venture capital firm, even if it's a partner, to be honest, they're pretty open. So hopefully if someone listening to this is trying to break into venture capital, they will just find one person to talk to, even if it's me, and just shoot us a DM on LinkedIn.
Even if it's you, because you don't have enough on your plate. Definitely should be Dimple.
But I can always put it on our group chat.
There you go. Yeah, absolutely. 'Cause that is the I feel like it's such a great opportunity to be in these kinds of chats, and it just makes a lot of sense for people. And like, yeah, and when you're asking for, okay, these are my clear goals and clear asks, there are people
Mhm.
who are like, oh, these are the different resources you should look into. And that makes a lot of,
Yeah.
like, otherwise you
It's
wouldn't
just
know. How would you know?
exactly. And it's just so heartwarming just seeing everyone help each other because we are ultimately just people at the end of this behind this device. So it's good to see that.
Yeah, actually, the group chat that where we met was referred to me by another woman in VC. I gave her my code for Web Summit because I don't think I'm going to Web Summit next year, and so I gave her my discount code
Okay.
for Web Summit. She's
Yeah.
from Salesforce, and I still haven't yet met her in person, and yet I've met everyone she has referred me to.
We need to make that happen if she's in the city.
She
But that's what I'm saying, you know, they don't have to know you to help you like you
isn't
did.
that
I love
amazing?
that so much.
Yeah, that's so
Especially female VCs, we need more of us
yeah,
together and helping each other. I'm all for
absolutely.
that.
Absolutely. So if you had like one final wish on like how to move women in venture capital or female founders and minority founders forward, kind of what would be your magic wand?
If I could make a law for every female venture capitalist that already exists, it would be that they take at least one call a week with a junior female venture capitalist or, you know, someone who wants to break into it. Because I truly think it really just is the gap really just exists in that communication and just letting them know that it's not as hard as you think it is. Well, it's hard, but
I'm
you know,
sorry, what?
it's not it's not as daunting and it doesn't have to be as daunting as you think it is. At least that's my take. If you have people and if you have mentors or friends that can just check in with you, have accountability partners even, I think that's so helpful. There is another thing for junior venture capitalists who, you know, want to break into this industry, have an accountability partner, a friend who maybe I've been trying to do this with my friends. Just ask them what they're up to, what their next kind of personal milestone is. It could be professional, personal, anything, and hold them accountable. And if you do this at least on a professional aspect, you know, one person can say, "Can you hold me accountable to reaching out to 5 people, emailing them my resume?" You know, and the other person could say, you know, "I have been wanting to look into this company. Can you make sure I do that?" And these are just very small things, but you know, as you grow your relationship and you meet other people, there will be these tasks that you finally end up doing, and I really think that's it's just a matter of just going ahead and doing it. So if someone's holding you accountable, it'll make you do it more. So
I
yeah,
love
those two things. Just take calls for folks who have already been in the industry, and for if you haven't, get accountability partners so you can make sure to get those done.
I love that. Thank you so much, Dimple. And thank you guys for tuning in to another episode of Unlocking Venture Capital, guest starring Dimple.
Thank you guys.